Hey, welcome back to Leading Edge. Good to have you along. You know, we had a primary election on Tuesday in Toledo. Really? We did. Didn't notice? Well, maybe that's because only about 8% of the people or so of the voters in Toledo actually voted. Regardless, however, of the turnout, the fields were narrowed in Toledo's mayoral and at-large city council races that you will decide, Toledoans, in November. In the mayor's race, maybe no big surprises here. Mayor Wade Kapsakavich will face off against former Mayor Carty Finkbeiner. The primary eliminated the Republican candidate, Jan Scotland. But Toledo electoral history tells us some things about primaries and what they mean for the November general election. And joining me from the Finkbeiner Campaign to kind of sort those out with me is Dr. Brehon Hall, pastor of the Greater New Psalmist Baptist Church. It's over on Glendale, South End, and a Finkbeiner Campaign volunteer. And word has it, sir, the inner circle will tell me that you're close enough to the mayor that some actually refer to you as his spiritual advisor.
Yeah, so that's quite true. Good morning to you, sir, and thank you for having me on.
Mr. Finkbeiner polls 27%. Given his long and storied history in local government, his off the charts name recognition, how troubled are you by the 27%?
Well, I'm not bothered by it. Of course, a loss is indeed a loss, and we were concerned in the Finkbeiner camp for one purpose, and that is we were hoping to do better. There's some variables that we must take into consideration as valuable lessons for us, and that is that there was very low voter turnout.
Yes, he was.
7.7% of voter turnout. And in the midst of that, the incumbent got 53%, which, of course, a person who is an incumbent mayor that the city enjoys or loves what he's doing should have gotten higher. Mr. Finkbeiner came in at 27%. And Jan Scotland had an impressive 19% for his first time coming out. And we, of course, congratulate and applaud him for a great run.
And let's go right there, Dr. Hall, because you know what happens. Now we regroup.
Sure.
Primaries in the rearview mirror, and we ask ourselves, well, what happens to those Scotland voters, his supporters? Again, the turnout was low, but if they reflect what may happen in November, we have to ask, what happens to the Scotland backers? What are you prepared to do to get them? Is that possible? Are the two candidates talking?
Well, of course, there's going to be a conversation between Mr. Finkbeiner and Mr. Scotland. And of course, he's called him and congratulated him on a job well done. We don't know what other conversations will happen. We can assume that there will be some support from that side simply because the citizens in Toledo are looking for something different. We don't know, and I'm not speaking intelligently enough or am able to speak intelligently enough to say whether or not those voters who supported Jan Scotland will come over and support Carty. We would like to think that they would, and we would like to think that we would get the support of Jan as well.
The 54% that the incumbent mayor, Wade Kapsakavich, polled, we can go back and forth on whether that's impressive or not if you're the incumbent, if you're popular. But again, 50% in politics is a big dang number in terms of that's what it takes to win, 50% plus one. He polled 54% in the primary. Will your campaign not have to drive up the incumbent's negatives? And if so, how do you do that? And is there?
I'm not sure if there's anything that we can drive up as it relates to the 4 years that he served in the office. We would have to consider that if you look at the 4 years in turn, what has he done? And we would have to come up with an equation of net zero. When you look at the 4 years that Carty was in office, we look at some development that happened in downtown. And we have to begin as a campaign to not drive on the negatives of Wade Kapsakavich, but let's look at the positives of Carty Finkbeiner. The mud hens are now downtown from a dilapidated building in Maumee. The Ohio, the Owens, Illinois building is Owens Corning is now downtown with the headquarters. We're looking at the docks in the Marina District and the fact that Carty fought to keep Jeep. There are persons who are probably working at Jeep right now who are not confident or not even sure why they have a job. It's because of Carty Finkbeiner. As I said to you yesterday, we can spend all of our time trying to find the fault in Wade's campaign, but Winston Churchill said, you will never get to your destiny if you stop and throw rocks at every dog that barks. And while the primary is significant, if we look at history, several years ago, back in the 1980s, when Donna Owens was running with Carty Finkbeiner, Carty defeated her in the primary by a landslide. but then she defeated him in the general election. So things are able to turn around. We must now look at the positives of what Carty has done, the Marina District, the docks, Owens Corning, the Mud Hens, Jeep staying in Toledo, and build on that.
There's a lot of stuff on the docket, and you correctly say has done. That's past tense. So let me just bounce one off you. This is Dr. Brehon Hall, a Finkbeiner Campaign Volunteer, close associate, really, of the former mayor. To those who say, Carty, you had your turns, plural. Yes, I know that you love Toledo, but you're also 82. It's really time to let younger minds and hearts lead us forward. Is that a practical mindset that you'll have to turn around, or is that ageism? And I mean, it's going to be an issue of some proportion.
So several years ago, when I was a teenager, my grandfather had a 1967 Ford. He decided he was going to sell it, and a young person decided they wanted to buy it. They came to the house, looked at the car, bought a mechanic with them because they weren't sure whether or not this 1967-year-old car would actually work in the 1990s. The person bought a mechanic with them, looked around the body of the car, under the hood of the car, looked at all of the wiring in the car and said, this car is great. The only way this car won't run is if there's no gas in the tank. Carty Finkbeiner still has gas in the tank. He's able to go forward and do things. Even as a private sector, he fought to help the University of Toledo Medical Center, UTMC, to stay where they are and stay in place, and persons kept jobs. He's been working behind the scene as an 82-year-old person. And I would venture to say that his energy is far greater at 82 than it was when he was 52. And he's got so much more to offer. Wouldn't
doubt you on that. All right, folks, stage set, game on. Let's move on to November when we elect a mayor. It'll be either Wade Capsicavage or the gentleman that my guest prefers, Carlton Finkbeiner, Carty Finkbeiner. Dr. Brehon Hall, it is an honor to meet you. Thanks for what you do in our community, and continued success. We'll talk again.
Thank you for having me.
And I will be right back.